Hello, friends. Welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be talking about Boyka Framework, an ultimate open source test automation framework, which covers API, web, Android, and iOS applications. You can use this framework to automate all of these applications. So the problem which these applications, this framework solves is that you don't need to have multiple frameworks together, or you don't need to have any kind of a framework created for that in your project. So nowadays what happens is every project and every company is having their own set of framework, and it differs from project to project and organization to organization. So with this Boyka framework, this all this process will be eliminated, and you don't need any customized framework for your site. Means you can directly plug and play this framework, and you are able to write the test from day one. So we'll be looking into this framework live demo today, and we will start with the demo of API automation. So we'll be starting, and we have Faisal Khatri with us on this channel today. And
Hello.
hi, Faisal.
Hello, folks. Hello, folks.
Yeah. So we'll be looking into Boyka Framework and how Boyka Framework can simplify the automation of API applications. So let's start with the demo today. Yeah. So this is the Boyka Framework repository on GitHub, where you can find more details about the framework, the features which it supports. Basically, the main feature is that it does not provide. It is promoting zero boilerplate code. We don't need to write any boilerplate code over here. You can automate API applications with schema validation, and you can also verify the response body. You can automate web browser application. You can automate Android and iOS applications, and you can also run on the cloud platforms like BrowserStack and Lambda test. It is highly configurable, so it is driven by this Boyka config.json. We'll look into it in a moment. So let's start. You can also go through the code snippets which I have put in the README, and some links which you can refer to. So it is. Let's check out the website also, where the documentation for the framework is available. So it is available over here. I have already opened that website. So you can go through the documentation, and we'll refer this documentation while going through the demo. So I'll start with a blank project, and I'll show you from start like how quickly you can start with automating the API application.
So
So
while
I'll,
you're creating the project, Vasik, I have
yes,
some queries. I think I should ask you. So
yes,
this is a kind of a framework which is built on Java programming language. Is it right?
yes. So Boyka
Uh,
framework is based on Java, and under the hood, it is using popular library. So for API, we are using OK HTTP3. And for web, we are using Selenium WebDriver 4. And for mobile, Android and iOS, we are using APM 2.0.
okay. So I read in somewhere on the LinkedIn where you shared one of the posts that it is a kind of a monorepo. Can you show that? Can you elaborate a bit about that monorepo thing, because it's a kind of a new thing that I've heard with regards to automation framework in the industry.
So monorepo is where there are multiple projects under one repository. So this project, the base project is based on Node.js. So you can see like there is a package.json file, and all the JavaScript related files are there. It is having the core project under the core Java, where we have the core Boyka framework. Uh, it is residing over here. So we also have the sample test project, which is also a Java-based project, where we are writing the demo test for the Boyka framework. And we are also having the documentation under this. We are using Dockersaurus with TypeScript, and we are writing the documentation website in this website folder.
Okay, thank you.
Let's get back to the demo. So I'll create one project called Boyka Sample. and I will put that project under say GitHub folder, and I'll select the language as Java, Maven, and I'll select the JDK 11. So Boyka framework supports JDK 11 and above, and we'll put some for group ID and artifact ID dot Vasily. Normally, the group ID the naming convention is like domain name of your website. So I don't. I'll be using my GitHub domain, and the artifact ID is same as the project name. So I'll create the repository. Create the project. Now we'll get the dependency. So for that, we can search on Indian repository. So then we'll search for Boyka.
Is it
Uh,
something kind of a different dependency that you are searching it on Maven repository? I think the dependencies are already available on the GitHub as well, right?
yes, yes. So the latest dependency is 0.12. So the README is a little behind because the reason is that we are following branching strategy. Like there are some branching layers which we go through in order to get the release out. So due to that, it is on the README it is having the previous version of 0.11.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I think you are following Git flow
Yes,
branching strategy, right?
yes. So we
And
are having
whatever code, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we are having three branches, core branches. One is
Mhm.
the develop branch, where all the features which are developed are merged to that branch. And once all the changes are done for the release, we'll merge that develop branch to staging branch. So once that pull request is merged to staging branch, we'll have a beta release. For example, you can see the beta release here like
Mm.
0.12.0 RC0. So depending on if there is any issues in that beta release, we'll have multiple versions of beta release happening. So until we are on the staging branch, we'll have multiple beta releases. And once everything is good, we'll merge the staging branch to the main branch via pull request. And once the that merge happens, this final cut will be made automatically. So all these are automated on the GitHub Actions.
Wow. And do you have anything documented on the on your website with regards to these automated steps that you have prepared or that you have implemented here?
So I have put some more details about this in the contributing section where you can see like what happens, what branching protections we have, what GitHub action workflows we are having, branching strategy. So all these branching strategy which I just talked about, it is described in this diagram, and you can check it out on this documentation.
Cool, cool. That's quite insightful to have a look at. I'll probably take a look after this call. Maybe it's something new to learn from as well. Thank you.
Yeah, so there are plenty of things which we have implemented in our process. So we have also a dedicated Discord server channel where you can build a community out of this framework. And as a community, you can post any questions about the framework on this Discord server. And I'm more active on this Discord, and I'll definitely get back on the queries. So we
Yeah,
are
and there's a discussion tab also available on the GitHub repository, because GitHub also provides us with the flexibility to discuss something with regards to the framework or the code that you are working on. If
yes,
you have any kind of question and answer, I think probably we can make use of this particular tab as well and create a new
yes,
discussion around that, so the people from the community can reach out to the maintainers as well as the owners to talk about the framework, maybe get some more insights, info, or if there's some how-to kind of thing that they want to discuss. Probably they can talk on that as well. So probably the first primary thing is the Discord server. If you're not available on Discord, you can probably switch to this discussion tab as well. Am I right?
yes. So it
Okay.
discussions is like you can prefer this as a first priority, where you can raise any feature request. We can have a discussion around those topics. Like If you have any feature idea which we can implement in the framework, you can go ahead and create a discussion out of it, and we'll have a discussion. And once we are good to proceed with that feature, we'll take it in the plan and implement that.
Cool, cool, good. Thank you so much. That's a nice idea, by the way, from learning from the community and hearing from the community and implementing the things which actually is helping the community out there. So that's really cool to know that. Thank you.
So let's get back to this demo. So we did this main file. So we'll use test ng for this. First, we'll add the dependencies. We'll add the Boyka dependencies. So if you notice, we are not we are not adding any dependency related to API automation. We are just putting one dependency, which is Boyka framework. You don't need to have any other dependency. So like normally what happened in the current project, we have a cluster of dependencies. Like for Selenium, we have a separate dependency. For APM, we have separate dependency. For API automation, we have separate dependency. So in this framework, you only have to give one dependency and everything will be covered in that. So we'll be writing the test with test ng. So we'll get the test ng dependency and we'll add it to the project. No, I think this is pretty much it. We don't need any other dependency. So let's create one package for API. We'll be having API demo. Um, so this is the main. Uh, we don't.
I think you need to create a package in the test folder, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, no
We don't
problem.
need any package
No problem.
to be there in the main. We'll just drag and drop it in the
Fine,
test
fine.
folder. Create one proper package. Dot drag it out. So now we'll create a test class called API test. So for this API test, we'll be looking into the RESTful Booker sample API application, where we'll be covering a scenario for create booking. So here we'll be hitting this endpoint and we'll be creating a booking using this request. So let's see how we can compose this request and how we can quickly do the automation for this. So we'll be hitting this endpoint using this request and we'll verify the response code to be 200. And we'll also verify the booking ID is not empty. And we are also verifying the name which we have passed in the booking request. Let's see how we can do that. So we'll write a test. Test. Before that, we need to build a new one to get the dependencies. Once this is done, we'll be able to get the test and test ng annotation, and we'll write the method for test. We so Boyka framework has simplified the API automation into 3 components. Let's go to the documentation and see how we can get started quickly with API automation. So we'll go with this. Go into the API. So first thing we need to do is create a configuration. So let's do that first. So first we need to create boyka config.json. So we'll copy this name. Now you might be thinking why we are copying the name. So we are copying this name because we need to have the name as it is provided. So we'll create the resources folder. So by default, Boyka framework will look into SRC test resources folder, and it should be having the name as Boyka config.json.
So that should
So,
be the exact name, like
yes,
boyka-config.json.
yes.
If it's
Normally,
something
it
other
is
than
the
that,
case, right? Well, normally, it is the case with similar other framework as well. If you look like into Playwright, there will be some Playwright related config, specific config. Then there is a WebDriver IoT. WebDriver is also having specific config to their requirement, right? So that's the similarity between other frameworks with Boyka config. So this config is like house to all the configurations which you will need for this framework. So you don't need to have multiple configuration files like normally we see in different projects where there are cluster of different configurations and properties file, whatever, which are too confusing and too verbose to have it. And it is pretty difficult for any newcomer in the project to understand what this configuration does. So we are following like only one configuration is required for everything. And it is like pretty easy to understand also. Let's see what the configuration. So this is the configuration. I'll just copy paste the things and I'll put it over here and I'll explain everything. So first thing is the base URI. So base URI in our case will be the RESTful Booker URL. Now this is the URL. We'll copy this and we'll create this base URL. And base path is the base path which we see like slash booking.
And this base path, probably that might be different for different APIs, like
Yes.
get, post, put, patch, delete. So in case if it is different in different APIs, which is not matching as per the config, then what should be done? Like, can we use a different parameter in the test itself, or
Yes,
different
there are
values?
options which we can do. We can pass the paths in the test also. So I'll show it to you while we are doing the demo.
So base path actually you mean to refer like it's a common path for all the
Yes,
APIs under the hood, or under
yes,
the API documentation,
yes.
whatever you have.
So if you see,
So if
there are other
every,
endpoints also which are also having similar endpoint. So if you are automating this kind of application where there are the base path is same for many endpoints, then you can add that in the base path. And the base URI is the actual URL of the endpoint. For in our case, it
okay,
is this the RESTful Booker heroku.app.com.
fine, got it.
So now we'll come to the test part. Now let's see how we can.
I have one more question with regards to config. So I see lot of parameters in the configuration with regards to like read timeout, write timeout,
Yes.
connection
So these are all
timeout, or something.
related
Can you
to
please
that.
explain them?
Yeah, these are all related to request timeouts, like while reading the request, while writing the request, and all these are common timeouts which are there for the APIs. So normally we can configure this to time out the request if it passes a certain threshold. So in this case, it is seconds. So we are just putting 2 seconds as a threshold for
Okay,
read and write timeout. For connection, we are
okay.
putting
So
1 second because we are assuming that the API is highly active and the server will not be lagging.
okay. So these
And there
values
is
are in
a
seconds,
yes in
right?
seconds,
Okay,
and
okay,
this is
fine.
a logging configuration is also there. So our framework will be logging the request details and the response details. So in request detail, what it will log? It will log all the details like request body. It will also log the request headers, the URL, and in the response it will log all the details related to response like response body, response headers, status code and status message, which we, all these things which are helpful to us, it will log in the console. And the schema path is required only for schema validation. So this framework also supports schema validation where you can verify the response schema. So for that, we'll put in the response schema files in this schema folder, and our test will automatically verify that uh, schema file with the response, whether the response is matching that schema or not. So that
Okay,
also we have the support. So the first step in API automation with Boyka framework is we will compose the request. So let's see how we can compose the request. So in our case, we can create a Pojo out of this thing, this request body, or we can simply just copy paste the JSON also. So let's do a simple thing first. So we'll copy paste the JSON. So in this documentation, we'll skip this part where we are using a POJO to compose the request. Okay. So this in this example, this user is a POJO which will act as a request body, and we are setting the
Okay.
data for that request via these methods. And later on, we are passing that as a body object. So we will be looking this example later, but we will first see an example of request as a simple JSON string. So we'll create a, where request body, and we'll paste that. So we will not change any value. We'll just keep it very simple and see like how it works. And second step is in this example is actually composing the request. So here API request class uh, is a builder class which you can use to compose the request. Okay. So let's see how we can do that. So here we'll import the class API request, and this is having also having a class where we can select the method which we'll be using. So in this case, we are doing a post request. We can see that in this call example. So we'll use the post request. The configuration key is the key which we have put in the Boyka config file. Under the API, there can be multiple uh, configuration settings you can put for multiple endpoints. So in case if you are automating different APIs, you can have different configurations for those. Like for example, you are automating RESTful booker over here. In the same project, you want to also automate another API for which is having a separate endpoint. Like for example, req.res.in. So that also you can have in as a separate configuration. So every configuration will have a key. So this is the key over here. We'll just copy the same key and we'll paste it over here. So we are telling this API request that create the request using the configuration key with the method post, and we'll be passing the path. In our case, we'll check the path. So we don't need to have any separate path. It is the base path only. So we can remove this path. Okay. And we will be requiring to pass the body. So body will pass the request body, which we have, and we'll create the API request. So this the request has been composed. So you just saw like how simply you can compose a request with the Boyka framework. Now the next step is to execute the request. So we'll be executing the request. So there is another class called API manager, which manages the API request we just built over. So we'll use that, and we'll create. We'll use API response. So this is the response which we will get from that execute method. We'll use API manager dot. So there is only one method over here in this class, execute, which will take request, API request, which we built over here. Okay. And this will directly execute the request. And you can directly now come to the last step, which is verifying the response. So now you can see how simply you can validate the response. So first thing we need to validate is the response status code, which is to be 200. So we'll do dot verify status code dot is equal to 200. So you can see like how simple it is to write a assertion over here. So you don't need to use any assertion library also. You can directly assert the response using the inbuilt methods of API response. Next thing, we will verify the booking ID. So let's see how we can validate the booking ID and verify that it should not be null. So first thing we need to do is we need to use JSON path. So we will do verify int field. So if you notice, this is an integer field over here, right? Right? It is a type of number. So we'll use int field and we'll pass the JSON path. So JSON path is a kind of a shorthand which you can use to get the value from the JSON body. So in this request, we are having booking ID. So it is in the root object, so we don't need to worry about anything. We just need to copy the value of the field name, and we'll just paste it over here. And we'll do dot is not null. That's how simple it is. Now, next
A
thing
quick
we'll
addition here. So if someone wants to check out for the JSON path, they can search for JSON path finder on Google, and they'll see one website which actually where you need to paste the response, and accordingly you will get all the JSON path for the respective JSON file content that you have posted on the website there. So it's quite easy to know from that as well. So you don't have to remember anything with regards to any JSON path out there. So since it's in the root folder, it's very easy to put in there. But in case if there's a JSON array or an object inside an array or an object of an object and then an array, so it becomes quite confusing to find out the JSON path out there. So you can just Google out JSON path finder and you will find out the respective website on the first top result itself, and you can make use of that website by pasting your response and finding the respective JSON path out of it.
yes. So now I'll show you an example like you told. So there is an object inside an object. So here there is a first name inside the booking object. So now let's see how we can validate the first name. So here we'll
That's a
use
field, actually. First
yes,
name is a field inside
yes,
the booking object.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
So this is a string field. So we'll be using verify text field. So here we'll pass the expression booking, then give a dot, and then the child object. The child
Yeah.
object is a field which is the first name, and this will get the first name value and will validate is equal to the value which we have given in the first name in the request body Jim. So it should validate that. Now let's execute this test. So if you notice, like it hardly took me any like 2-3 minutes to write this particular test. So let's see how it will run. So here you can see the logging executing API request. So this is the request body which we passed, and this is the URL. And we have also put a curl request in case if you want to debug this. So you can also
Okay.
debug with the curl by just copy pasting that this code snippet. So now let's see why this request failed. So here we are getting a status code of 418. So, let's
I think
first
we need to put in
understand.
the content type
Okay, so let's
because
do
that's
that.
what was mentioned in the API documentation out there.
Yes. So let's see how we can add the content type. Okay. So it is pretty simple with this. We'll do the content type. Can you use content type dot JSON. Now we'll execute again. So, so this will again execute and it will take hardly any time to get the result. Again, it is failing. Let's see that why it is failing again.
I think we need to pass on the other header as well as mentioned, except.
Okay. So let's also see this example how we can also add a request header. So in this we'll pass as a header and we'll put accept and we'll put the thing which is mentioned in the documentation, which is application slash JSON. Now we'll again execute this. So you can see like how simple it is. You can just modify this API request object and you can simply add as many things as you want.
Yeah, and the logging part actually is beautiful. I can understand by looking at the log itself that something is missing out there, and we can quickly fix that in
Yes.
a fraction of seconds.
Yes. See, like how quickly we just executed. In within 2 seconds, it executed and it passed. So all our accession also passed, like the verify status code, all this booking ID is not null, and first name is also equal to Jim. So like this, you can add as many validations as possible. You can use the inbuilt verification methods provided by API response. So you can see the logging also, like how neat the logging is. Then you can simply go through that logging and understand what happened. So you can see the status code is 200, status message is okay, and there are different response headers which is also available and logged in this logs. So that's how
So I have
quickly
a
we
question,
did.
Vasik.
Yeah,
Being a tester, a case came to my mind. Like what we see all the things passing, and you mentioned that all the responses and the inline verification passed. I just want to see if whatever test that you have written or whatever lines of code that you have written are that actually working. So just can we just put out a negative case where we don't enter the correct first name there, instead of Jim you enter Vasik there. I just want to see if the framework is actually working as expected. So
yeah.
uh, this is a kind of a validation that came to my mind. Being a tester's mind, I thought of like doing some kind of testing with the framework as well here.
That's good. Another thing I will talk about is while this is executing, that I have written all the unit tests for this framework. So all the methods which we are seeing over here is already tested with the framework in the framework itself. So here you can see that this test is failing because the session has failed. So we'll see what is the error. So you can see here it is expecting Vasik, but it actually got Jim. So in the actual response, the first name is Jim, and we are trying to expect it as Vasik. So that's why it failed. So internally
Cool,
for
cool.
assertion, I am using the Google Truth library. It is a pretty awesome library, and all these methods which you are using is from the Truth library.
Cool,
So
cool.
that's the whole demo with Boyka framework on the post API request. So we can also have more demo videos in the future where we will see different examples with API automation. We will see an example with web automation, how we can automate a web application, how we can automate Android application, iOS application. So people can stay tuned to this channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see the different videos which will be coming in the future related to this framework and test automation.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think definitely we need to post one more video with regards to the, because
yeah.
whatever you showed just now was plain and quite pretty simple and vanilla piece of cake, where
Yes.
people literally know about how to put down such things. Because when you get into the project, we have different kind of JSON requests available. So instead of
Yes.
using the hard coded values and passing that as a request body that is not recommended, we
Mm.
can pass on using the pojos, and also a kind of, I think you already showed a kind of a getter setters automatically getting generated using Lombok. There's a
Yes.
dependency in there which
Mm.
is being used.
Mm.
So we can make use of those, showcase out such cases as well to the community, which will make their testing much easier and lot easier than what they are actually doing right now with other such frameworks out there.
Yes, definitely. We'll plan another video very soon, and we'll look into the different scenarios, like how we can use Pojo instead of this JSON string, how we can try to use dynamic data, where you can try to automate your tests by data-driven scenarios using some data-driven things like data coming from Excel or some other sources. You can see that. We'll definitely. Uh,
And also one more point, like you showed one configuration setting with regards to JSON schema as well. I think we can also come up with a
yes.
video where we demo out the JSON schema validation as well. That's
Yes.
quite useful because I've seen that JSON schema validation actually catching out the bugs in the development environment itself with regards to the JSON that was changed pretty much when it comes to the third party APIs, working with the third party APIs. So I think we need a lot of things to come up with to make the community aware of such kind of frameworks, how to use them and actually get their hands on it.
Yes.
Okay. So Vasik, you also mentioned about in the configuration when we were talking about the configuration things, you mentioned about JSON schema path as well. So I think we can come up a video with regards to how to perform JSON schema validation also in the upcoming days and share it with the community, because this is a kind of a important thing to do as a part of testing. Because when it comes to testing with the third party APIs, the schema validation uh, is initially required, because most of the time that it happens that the JSON schema is changed by the third party APIs, and you just keep on searching out for the different errors that your API tests are throwing, because and that thing happens because the schema from the third party vendor has been changed. Now if you have that schema validation test in place, you would be very much easily getting the errors or the respective issue with regards to the failures of the API test out there. And we can actually make use of it and see where actually is the failure, which thing is actually causing the failure.
Yes. Definitely. We'll plan out that video very soon, and we'll showcase the JSON schema validation also. So
Cool,
just
cool.
to conclude, where we have almost done with the API demo. To conclude, there we currently the Boyka framework is supporting only the REST APIs, the SOAP API and the GraphQL and gRPC, whatever it is, not yet supported, and we'll be rolling out that support very soon. In yeah. So that's it for this video. We have done for with the API demo with Boyka framework, and we will come up with a new video very soon. So if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like, give a thumbs up to this video, and yeah, share it with your friends. And
And I think we will be putting out all the links in the descriptions
yes,
of this
we'll
channel.
provide all the links for Boyka framework in the description box below. And if you have any suggestion, any comments about this video, do put it in the comment box below. So that's it from our side. Uh,
Thank you, Asik, for this
yeah.
wonderful video and this awesome session. I am looking forward for more such sessions from with you. Thank you.